Welcome back to Kicking It with Coco. We got Clint Hurdle on the show this week, and we're going to get into some stuff. For those that don't know, he's back in the game. He's on the bench with the Rockies. He was initially hired as the hitting coach, but now he's back on the bench. He's also an author. So, Clint, dude, you got a lot going on, man, right now.
My 2025 year flipped on me, Will, somewhere in the middle of April. I had finished writing a book. It actually was published in November 2024. And fortunately, I've got a very, very good publishing group, Wiley Publishers, working with me. So we had set up some tours, some book signings throughout the summer, family vacations with my daughter and my son. And then in the middle of April, I got a call from the Colorado Rockies. And basically it was from the team owner, Dick Monfort, and Greg Fiesel, the team president, and the GM, Billy Schmidt, all men I've known over almost 30 years, asking me if I'd consider getting back in uniform and taking over the hitting program. I was humbled, number one. I know we've struggled for the past 2 years. We've had back-to-back 100-loss seasons, and this year got off to a very rough start. And we're still navigating rough waters now. But I had to think it through, and I talked to some people in my inner circle. I talked to my wife, most importantly. I talked to my kids, because it's a major commitment to get back in uniform. And it would flip the entire summer that we had planned. So everybody signed off. Everybody said, hey, if you think you can help and they want you to help, why wouldn't you help? I think it's somewhat relative to the stories that I share with our young players when they go through difficult times. If you live on a farm, you probably are aware that the cattle run from a storm. They run directly away from a storm, where the buffalo run right to the storm so they can get through it quicker, and face it. So actually, I ran to the storm. I've been on the bench now since April 18th. The job flipped a month into it when Buddy Black was let go. Then they asked me to be the bench coach for our young interim manager, Warren Schaefer. And again, a lot of love for the organization. It's not just those three guys. It's the 300 employees that work there every day trying to sell tickets. It's the people that are answering phone calls, first responders that take that first phone call from a very irate fan or a disappointed fan. The least I could do, I felt, was to get back in uniform, go back to a place that I love. We had some success there a long, long time ago, and try and help us find our way back to winning ways.
You've also been super active on X recently, and you've been really open with your life and 2 divorces and alcoholism and your coaching. Like, why all of a sudden do you want to share all this with everybody?
It was a point in time when, like I said, I was in a good spot. Last time I wore uniforms, 2019. I took 2 years off for basically what I tried to call a cleansing. I wasn't tied to an affiliation. I had no organization. I had no skin in the game as far as baseball went. I poured back into my family. I spent time at home with my 2 children, Maddie and Christian, that were in high school. I was able to spend more time with my oldest daughter, Ashley, who now has moved back to Florida, close to my mom and dad, on the other side of the state from me. But it was just a time to settle. Not settle to be complacent, but just to slow down and get out of the vacuum I was in. Well, the Rockies asked me back as a special assistant to the GM late in 2021 and 2022. I took that opportunity. So I was working 2 weeks a month, which was turned out to be a really good mix. I'd go up and down our affiliate chain from Albuquerque to Hartford to Spokane to Fresno. I'd spend time in Scottsdale with our kids playing there. I'd make a trip to the Dominican. I'd be involved with the scouts this week, while they're all together getting ready for the draft. Did many different responsibilities, but I was also just 2 weeks involved, home 2 weeks. And my son just started talking to me. And once I decided to start writing the book, he said, Dad, he was getting ready to leave. And he goes, you've been so positive and so encouraging for so many years. He goes, you're missing the boat on not getting on the social media kick and just trying to share some experience, strength, and hope. And this is an 18-year-old, my 18-year-old son. I'm like, well, buddy, hey, the social media, no. I said, I don't know enough about it. I thought to actually utilize it in a proper fashion as Dad. It's nothing different than what you do with your emails or your texts. You just do it on a bigger platform. You can reach more people. He said there are some things that you need not to do. You don't need to engage. You don't need to fist fight. You need to be bright, light, and polite. You're going to get haters. People are going to fire back. They're going to say, whatever. He said, just walk away. And he goes, that'll be hard for you, but you need to walk away. He said, Dad, I really think you should do this. So I think we started with X and Instagram, and now it's gone to Facebook, it's gone to LinkedIn. And Will, basically, I just know how many times in my life, as I share very authentically and very transparently, the challenges that I've walked through and been through, most of them I created. I'm just trying to share some experience, strength, and hope for somebody out there that can say, oh, look, he's a manager, he's done this. No, it was a lot more than that. There was a lot of challenges, a lot of heartache. I hurt people along the way. I had to learn lessons the hard way more often than not to retain the lesson. I've been blessed beyond measure as well, to work through 2 divorces, to be a 26-year, alcohol-free. I've been sober for 26 years. My drinking complicated my life. My life had become unmanageable in some places. None of the things that have happened in the past 25 years would have happened if I didn't get sober. And for me, rededicate my life to Christ. I just want to share that with other people, that no matter where you think you are, how dark it could be, how lonely it could be, there is a way out, but you've got to take action first, and you've got to ask for help. And that was the biggest challenge for me, was admitting that I had messed all these things up, and to own them and then ask somebody else for help, because I kind of grew up in a generation where, you just put your head down and go hard. You got yourself into this mess, you'll get yourself out. And those are all lies that I think society tells us men. It's not all about testosterone. It's about finding value in other people and serving other people, and through that you end up finding, there's some good in me too that maybe I can share.
It's interesting because listening to your story and where you are today and being back on the bench kind of unexpectedly on a team that's really struggling. I then saw something about you talking about how the pressure to perform really kind of kicked off your drinking. And I'm sure a lot of the kids that you're coaching today are having a really tough time on the biggest stage at the highest level, not performing, not winning, and losing at a really high clip. And do you feel like you've been put there almost for an entirely different purpose than when you didn't expect it, because now you're willing to share your struggles, you're sharing with other people, and now you can help the next generation as well?
I believe wholeheartedly in what you just shared, that there's more reasons, and I'm still finding out the reasons why I'm here. Yes, it was to ask for help with the hitting program first. It was that. Then it was to help grow up a young manager and navigate some young coaches in the coaching room and oversee a hitting program. But for me, it's more about life. And, I think initially, one of the things that has been very gratifying, yes, the opportunity to coach is real. The opportunity to teach is real. The patience we're going to need to have for everybody here together in the Rockies organization needs to continue throughout the summer. We've got to give ourselves some time to work through this. And, it takes courage to be patient. And what I'm trying to share with these young men mostly is that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to have a bad day. It's what you do with it after. You're going to go through. I don't like to use the word slumps. I like to use the word funk, because a slump, as my good friend Steve Springer says, a slump is letting yesterday's business get in the way of today's business. Your 0 for 20 has nothing to do with today. Really, it's the past 5 games. And what is your definition of success? What are you in control of really in that batter's box? And it comes down to a very small list. Get a good pitch to hit. Try and hit it hard. And if neither one of those happen, don't freak out. And reset the mechanism. And that usually turns into a different conversation. And I've been blessed with an opportunity to build relationships with most of these young men the past 4 years in the minor leagues. So they've gotten to know me. They know my story. And I think they do realize that now I'm authentic, because I don't think any of them anticipated seeing me in uniform with them this year. I was going to do the thing I've done the last 4 years, and Okay, here's Clint. He's playing in the dugout. And you know what's kind of cool? For 17 years, I was a major league manager, but now I'm behind the scenes. I'm the guy behind the curtain. I'm trying to help other people as a guide on the side. I've walked in that light. You know, it's very bright. The challenges, the distractions, the expectations. And every once in a while, they just need somebody put an arm around and say, you know what? Slow this thing down. It's going to be okay, but we got to figure a way out.
Man, you talk about the pressure of reform when you were drafted. Like the attention has grown significantly in this game since then. What do you tell these kids today? Like, because your perspective is obviously unique, and it's certainly changed over the years too.
Well, you share, I want to say, handfuls of information. Nobody wants to hear anybody talk for 30 minutes or get lectured. I try and share reminders with them. Nobody wants to be told what to do. So most of the time, I'll try and start the conversation with a good question. Hey, I watched this, I saw this, but what did you feel when that was going on? Or what were you thinking while that was going on? Whether it's a play in the field, whether it's an at bat, whether it's a conversation with another coach, whether it was, sometimes, they have a lot of opportunities for media interviews. And sometimes they don't come off the way they'd hoped to. I've got a lot of experience in talking to the press and sharing with the press. And maybe I can step back. Early on Warren's tenure as a manager, I was watching all his post-game conferences the next day. And then we would sit down and just kind of kick around the thoughts. Catchphrases, not cliches, but things you need to be aware of, things you don't need to, places you don't need to go with the press. One thing I encourage even the players, just answer the question. You don't need to embellish. You don't need to tell them a story. Just answer the question. But for me, there's never been more distractions in these young men's lives. I mean, I can't imagine the distractions I had. I thought were huge. Today, it's times 10. Whether it's a small posse at home, whether it's all the people that tell them, oh, you're not hitting high enough in the order, you're not getting enough playing time, manager doesn't know what he's doing. I do share with them that I hope you have a few people in your life that are truth tellers, that are hope brokers for you, that people are willing to help you raise your arms and be lifted up, not people that are just bobbleheads. You know what happens to a bobblehead when you hit it? It just shakes its head.
Yeah, just keep going.
And keep. You need to have people that will tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
Going back to your days when we were talking about you getting drafted, 9th overall. I didn't realize you were that high, but only a $50,000 signing bonus, man. These guys today are getting $9 million. Do you look back and just like, I can't put like that back then though? Was it a lot?
$50,000 was all the money in the world, I thought at the time. And we had stock options through Marion Laboratories. There were some other things tied to that deal that made it even greater than I could have ever imagined. Ewan Kaufman was the owner. You had college paid for. I never went back and took advantage of that, but you had other incremental bonuses built in. But you know what? I've never been that guy. I have enough friends that are that guy that know I don't ever want to be that guy, to compare money and times, and nothing good happens in comparison, right? You either feel better than or less than. Chase Dolander, who we just sent down, but I've gotten to know very well in the past few years. He was drafted in the 9th round, maybe 3 drafts ago. He got $6.9 million. But we are in the space we're meant to be in. So I just look at the fact that I was blessed with an opportunity. I was the 9th pick in the nation. I found out the hard way, Will, and you'll read this in my book later. I finally started making money in the game when I stopped playing it. Me trying to play the game never made a whole lot of money. Once I got out, started coaching and managing, things worked out, but I was never in it for the money anyway. But can you imagine now? I mean, can be generational money for some of these young players coming out, and the sacrifices that families make along the way for these young men to get this opportunity. And then hopefully they're used wisely, and hopefully the money's invested wisely so it works out. But for every great story, you hear a lot of hard stories, what happens along the way too. And the pressures are tremendous. That's why I do believe, for those that have a faith-based set of connections in their life, it can help. But they need people in their life that will tell them the truth, whether it's a financial advisor, whatever type of agent they had. There's different people that are skilled in those specific areas that they're going to run into challenges that I think they can really tap into. They'll help out. So once you get them, basically what we try and do with our kids now, get them on the field and eliminate all the distractions. The best thing Major League Baseball has done has learned how to take care of the minor leaguers better. In the last few years, they pay for housing, pay for food. Why it didn't happen before, I can't answer that. I went through the period where it didn't happen like that, where you had a lot of challenges. You got to find a place to live. We were living 5 and 6 in an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment. We're struggling. We're trying to make ends meet for food because not every guy was a high draft choice. Now we've eliminated distractions for the minor leaguers, so they can just go play ball. And I think this works in life as well. I'm sure your life is more manageable, Will, when you don't have a lot of distractions going on. I know mine is.
Yeah, no doubt. Going back to your days as a manager, you had a lot of success in places that don't see a lot of success, in Colorado and Pittsburgh. What do you remember about those times and seeing those places rocking during the playoffs? Because I remember vividly watching the Pirates, you guys in the playoffs, being like, I'm not a Pirates fan by any stretch, but I was rooting for y'all because that place was bumping and it was fun to watch.
There's many fingerprints on success, and a lot of times people don't recognize that. And I may not have when I was younger, but I did know the heavy lifting we had to do in Colorado together, the heavy lifting we had to do in Pittsburgh together. I was really blessed with a group of people that were able to unite into one common goal, and no one cared who got the credit. I give a lot of credit to Dan O'Dowd. He gave me my first opportunity to manage. Don Baylor hired me as his 5th hitting coach in 5 years. I never saw that one coming. I never saw being a big league manager coming. I was always just focused on doing the job that I had at the time, but Dan was very creative and innovative in Colorado. He trusted a young guy that had no big league experience managing, minor league experience managing, that had worked within the organization for a few years to kind of head up a rebuild. And rebuilds are hard. We did it together. In Pittsburgh, I went over to an organization that had 18 consecutive losing seasons. And then Neil Huntington gave me an opportunity there after being fired in Colorado. Kyle Stark was instrumental in our development in Pittsburgh. The coaching staff, the players, there's so many people tied to a successful year. I was fortunate that I was in the position I was in, but I relied upon other people to do their jobs because they had skill sets better than mine in certain areas, and it all worked together. And to see both those cities erupt like they did, the fan bases in the World Series in 27, that Rocktober run, we won 21 out of 22 games. It was nuts. And then in Pittsburgh, to flip the script on 20 consecutive losing seasons and 21 years without a playoff experience, that play-in game, the one that they showed, against the Reds, our city showed up, our fans showed up, the stadium showed up. There were electric times. I'm very thankful and grateful for all of them. But I had people that believed in me, that gave me an opportunity, and more often than not, that's what I'm trying to be for other people now. To be
Are you still surprised? Are you surprised that Andrew McCutchen is still playing baseball?
I'm not. His heart is his best tool. He's got tools, but he loves the game. He loves the city of Pittsburgh, which makes a difference. And I just admire him so many ways. And, I've been blessed with relationships. Todd Helton and I walked hand in hand for many years as a coach and manager. And then in the minor league system, as we were traveling around here with Colorado, he invited me to Cooperstown last year on his A list. He took my wife, Carla, and I to go with him to celebrate that. We had Josh Hamilton out of the ballpark in Colorado last week to spend some time with our hitters and our players, who I developed a relationship with in Texas when I was a hitting coach in 2010. Michael Young, Andrew McCutchen. I still stay in touch with, I'm fortunate, I stay in touch with a lot of former players. Andrew's the only one probably still playing that I stay in touch with that dramatically. I've been lucky. I've been very, very lucky, very fortunate.
Man, I want to talk. So when you do this, you build a culture in a clubhouse. And here in Houston, I don't know how they're winning baseball games right now, the clip that they're winning, because They have Yordan Alvarez, Spencer Arrighetti, Ronel Blanco, Luis Garcia, Christian Javier. They lose Alex Bregman. They lose Kyle Tucker over the years. They've lost Yuli Gurriel, the list, Carlos Correa, whoever, everybody. And that culture holds so strong here in Houston. And I always talk about how there's a difference between a team and an organization. And that organization of the Astros, we are seeing it right now, how strong it is. How do you build that? Like, how do you go about that when you were a manager?
It starts with the leadership at the top. It really does, because it doesn't just happen in the clubhouse. The clubhouse is important. That's where the men play. And the men of the clubhouse need to understand they're representing the other 300 people that work in the organization. Sometimes we get very insular. And I think one of the things from my perception outside looking in, the Astros have done is that's an organizational culture, because managers have come and gone. Coaches have come and gone. Players have come and gone. I was speaking the other day to Jeremiah Randall, who's the trainer when the Astros were in town playing us. We talked about this specific subject because he's been there, I want to say, for like 10 years now, over 10 years. So he's seen a lot of change. But we were talking about the ability of that organization to sustain a winning mentality, a competitive edge on the field that's sustainable, and a certain kind of player that shows up and plugs into the system. It's not plug and play, but that's what it looks like from the outside. And right now, after watching those guys play 3 games, I wasn't surprised they went into LA and did what they did. You've got an airtight bullpen. The bullpen is nails. The bullpen is hard. It's hard to hit those guys, those arms coming out. You've got position players that complement each other. You've got some speed. You've got some power. You've got some hitability. I think one of the things that I'm more impressed with in the game now, watching it back in the dugout, is there's a lot of lineups. There's some good lineups, trust me, throughout the big leagues, but they have holes where there's a ton of swing and miss. They don't have a lot of swing and miss like a lot of clubs do. They got a lot of bat-to-ball contact. They got enough power to ride balls out of the ballpark. They can play winning baseball, win different ways. They're managed well. They're coached well. Jeremiah and I spoke on a specific subject, how it's been fun to watch. And I have become a new fan, and I have a new appreciation now for the Astros that I probably didn't have 5 years ago, watching them continue this pace. Because every year, the Astros, they didn't, but then they do. Once you start playing the games, they do. They win games on the field.
I'm curious, when you were a manager, and because we hear rumors about this all the time today, no matter the team, is that the front office and the GM or whoever starts making lineups. Is that reality? And 2, was it like that when you were managing?
Number one, it wasn't like that when I was managing. I first got dipped into the analytical bucket after I was fired in Colorado, and I went to work for the MLB Network the second half of the season. I would go in, I think it was, every other week, I'd go and do 3 or 4 segments. But the prep room they had there for information blew me away. I mean, this was just at the start of analytics really kind of being pushed forward and implemented by general managers, younger general managers. There's been a trend and a churn. Owners pass away or sell teams. New GMs come in that are younger. They have new ideas. They see the game from a different lens than the game I watched when I was their age. When I got to Pittsburgh, not only did I get dipped in that bucket, I got basically soaked in the bucket, because at that time, Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh were probably the 2 most driven analytical teams in baseball. We were playing shifts. We were leveraging bullpen. I had the opportunity for probables, to get probable numbers, which means you have a pitcher like Roy Oswalt. Okay, you know what Roy throws. You've got a handful of guys that have faced Roy. You have hard numbers, real life experience with Roy. But then they compare Roy's stuff to 14 other pitchers, and they give you a comparable list of guys that throw like Roy, what hitters would match up. So it's all imaginary. It's all AI. But in doing that, it opens up your window and your eye to different things, and you see how it plays out, and you go, okay, there may be something to this. I started asking for a lineup from our group every day just to see what the lineup would be spit out by the computer. Over time, you evolve. you learn more. I would share with them things. Not a lot of hitters like to be messed with. They don't like to hit fifth one day and then first the next, then ninth the next. So you try and figure out together. There's human analytics, there's statistical analytics. We tried to combine them into a hybrid situation that made sense for everybody. Because the one thing that grabbed my attention, Will, which totally flipped the switch on all this, where I said, you know what, I need to shut up and listen and learn, was after the first year, Andrew McCutchen, he hit third all year, 2011, my first year in Pittsburgh. And that offseason, the first 2 years I was there, we got off hot and we just didn't finish. We finished cold. So we were trying to figure out after the first 2 years better ways to win at the margins because we couldn't throw money at all our challenges. And I can remember the first conversation. They said, well, let's talk about the lineup. Are you open to trying maybe some different ideas about the lineup? I said, guys, I'm open to anything. Let me hear it. They go, well, who would you like to hit third this year? I said, well, McCutchen. He's the baddest dude on the team. The baddest dude on the team hits third. Dusty Baker and I used to kick this around all the time. Baddest dude on the team hits third. Baddest dude in the league is the MVP. And they go, well, yeah, that's the way it's been for a long time. Are you aware of the fact that over the last 2 years, Andrew McCutchen has hit with nobody on and 2 outs 160 times? And I was like, what? They go, he's hit with your best hitter has hit with 2 outs and nobody on this many times.
Wow.
And you know what? It just made me pause. I'm going, oh my gosh. Yeah, I can see you start the game, right? And the first 2 that doesn't happen all 162 games, but it happens a lot of games. So they were talking about how you leverage different hitters in different situations. That's what got my attention. We moved Andrew to second. We did some things within the lineup that made sense. We had some pillar guys that we kept in the same places just because. But over time, I do believe still today, the best organizations, the ones that are elite, are using both those sets of human analytics and statistical analytics. You have to have a relationship with the player. I don't believe in treating them like pieces. I know it's a term, it's a catchphrase, but they have a heart. And when you remove the heart from the game of baseball or anything else, it dies or it becomes sterile. I think we over-calibrated a lot early. I think the calibration has come back to a good place, and you're seeing a lot of good organizations use both. Yes, I do know some organizations that lineup is computer spit out every day. And the managers know that. That's what they sign up for. That's okay. The game's different. And I'm not going to be the grumpy old man shaking my fist because you know what? Here's a fun fact. Early in my tenure in Colorado, we'd hire interns at different times to help in certain areas. And I had this idea. I wanted to know how many decisions I made in a day as the manager. So I had an intern follow me around with a pitch counter, the clicker. And every time I would make a decision, I'd point my finger. It was kind of comical, It was, if Steve Martin and Martin Short were doing it, it'd be hilarious. But it was me and this kid, and I would just point. And we got to the point where it was like 6 o'clock, which is normally when I go in my office and shut the door. I give myself 30 minutes of downtime. Nobody can touch me. And then I get down to the dugout a half an hour before the game. So the kid's sitting down with me, and I go, okay, what's the clicker say? We started this at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's now 5 hours later. He goes, you made 181 decisions. The game I'm an hour from game time. And you know how many, you're going to make a bunch of decisions come game time. And I can remember looking at that kid. I think his name was Will. I go, Will, can you believe I've made 181 decisions? Do you think I've made a correct decision every time I've done it? And he's like, wow. No, I never thought of that. He goes, probably not. He was afraid to even. I go, no, you're absolutely. There's no way I'm going to make every decision correctly. I need to find a way to lean into other people that are smarter than me in certain areas to help me make better decisions.
I've come around on analytics. I think there's a time and place for all of it. I get it. I'm so fearful of analyzing the human being out of the game because baseball itself is the most mental game that there is. It's a game of failure. The greatest hitter of all time failed 60% of the time. You make the playoffs and get 95 wins and you're barely over 500 in this game. It's so hard. And the human aspect is so real. You talk to these dudes in the clubhouse and trust me, the mental game is serious. So I love hearing you say that.
Here's the other part, Will, that that I still fight for. And where I got disappointed in our game is we started trending where we were leveraging everything. And you may have read it I've shared on X a couple times. We're not meant to leverage everything in life. We are not meant to. I believe this with all my heart. I started twitching when I would see this drip into minor league systems where we're not giving young players an opportunity to fail anymore.
It's like your kid.
There's so many rewards that come from failure. First of all, you find out who can and who can't. And failure is not a person. It's a one-time event. Now, if you put that person in the same situation 10 times and they fail 9, you might want to keep him or her away from that situation moving forward. But that doesn't mean they can't be good in another situation. But so many times, it empowers the player when you give them that one shot where it didn't work, where they did fail. But then 2 days, 3 days later, a week later, you give them another opportunity and bam, they nail it. They come out of there, they're a different person. And I hate to see that. I know hate's a strong word, but it disappoints me when I see that. That's the whole reason of the opener. We've leveraged starting pitching. We've taken away the depth and the quality of starting pitching. And truthfully, their starting pitching is what drives the engine. And, you can say, well, other teams have won. Yeah, they have won. And they've done it different ways. How many of those guys are still pitching? How many arms are being complicated along the way?
That's a whole different conversation.
A whole different conversation. But it comes from leveraging situations. It's never been harder to hit. There's so much spin. There's so much velocity. I actually get in some fun conversations with our hitters in the cage because I got a couple guys that have been around the block a couple times. They go, yeah, when you played, they threw 80 miles an hour. And now I'm not the guy that's going to scream back at them, but we'll have a conversation and I'll say, yeah, they threw 80, but, or however, and da-da-da. But the point being is I don't think athletes have ever been stronger. They've ever been quicker. They can throw harder. They can hit it farther. My challenge is they practice in such small spaces more often than not that they've lost the cohesion in the community for the game, the lock and arms of a lineup, that we're trying to help recreate that. But it's tough to hit in today's game. However, at the same time, there's no need to overcomplicate something that's always been hard to do. And I think we're still doing that in some areas. There's too much information. Not every hitter can handle the same amount of information. We've got to be able to spoon feed some guys, maybe cup feed another guy. And we've got to have coaches that understand where the information is coming down from up top, that can handle it, digest it, and then share it with the players.
It reminds me of my golf game. It's like someone gives me 4 tips. I'm like, guys, I got 1 tip at a time every 9 holes. I can't take all the tips right now. I got to worry about this arm right now. And that's all I have mental space for. And it's interesting because people want to scream that like people like you and I are the ones that refuse to budge. I think we're the more amenable ones to allowing analytics into like our thought process, where it seems like the analytic people have like the human being doesn't matter. The baseball card's a baseball card. The stats are the stats. The numbers are the numbers. It feels like they're the stubborn ones.
That could be in some cases. I think it goes back and forth. But what I've tried to realize, that's all they've learned. Some of them have played. In Pittsburgh, we put a group together. Dan Fox led it, a brilliant man. He developed our own analytics program called the MIT, and a guy named Mike Fitzgerald worked underneath him. Mike had an athletic background more than Dan. He played sports collegiately, intramurally, whatever. He's now the lead guy in Arizona. What we did to transform that is we brought, because they want to share all this information. You're going to get all this paper. We're going to give you this. We brought Mike down to the clubhouse. I said, look, buddy, if this is going to work at all, you got to develop some street cred with these players. You got to live with them. You got to die with them. You got to be there when my closer makes a pitch in the 9th inning, looks over his shoulder, checks the runner, makes a pitch, throws a good pitch. A guy hits a ground ball through the 6 hole where the shortstop has played for 100 years, and it goes for a game-losing single. You need to be there when he walks in the door, just to feel it. You also need to be there when my closer makes a bad pitch, bases are loaded, and the guy hits a missile right back through the middle, 110 miles an hour, and my shortstop standing right in front of it and catches it in a position he's never played, where he's never played before. By bringing them down the reality of the game, it humanized them. It made them understand more. We were all together. They built street cred with the players. That's how the programs work best, when there's a little give and take on both sides.
Last question before I let you go here. If there's one thing you could change in the game today, what would you change? I'm stoked that they got rid of the shift. I know that analytically it made sense. I hated it as a baseball fan. What do you want to do?
Well, shame for us on not being able to beat the shift better, because that's why.
So that's another thing. Could hitters really beat the shift every time if they wanted to, or
No.
is that overblown?
That's overblown, because with speed, with the velocity and the spin involved in the game right now, just hitting the thing is the most important. Some guys are just trying to tick it. Some guys are squaring it up. Some guys aren't. Some guys are swinging and missing an incredible amount of time. But that's part of it, because we've come one-dimensional. Players get paid in big leagues for OPS. That's the yardstick. OPS is in the air. Well, you know it. I know it. It's not on the ground. So that's one of the oxymorons of our game. However, the one that does drive me crazy is the ghost runner. But now, time out. Okay? I mean, it has drove me crazy since it happened. I haven't been tied to the game. I was watching from home. I'm in a minor league park. I'm in a big league park. I'm in khakis and a Hawaiian shirt. I'm this, I'm that. I can't say it. Well, about 2 or 3 weeks ago in Milwaukee, our manager, Warren Schaefer, got thrown out. I start managing the game in the 4th inning. It was the game that we played, I want to say, 11 innings. Let me tell you, as a manager of a team and that ghost runner's at second base, it was a whole different dynamic. It was like a carnival. It was like a scary carnival ride for me. So do I still like it? No. But I understand why they do it, because it's drama times 10 every pitch when somebody drops in at second base, and now you're playing the game. It's a whole different game, which is kind of crazy. But I get it a little bit now. I still don't like it, but I get it, because managing that thing, it was a whole different, because I'd never done it before. I'd never had to manage a game with a ghost runner before. Truthfully, kind of freaked me out.
What's crazy is I hate that I love it. I love it because it's exciting. I love that it brings small ball back into baseball. Like, now you're laying down a bunt trying to get them over to third with less than 2 outs. I hate it, and I hate that I love it even more.
I get it. And I would love, I keep seeing our ticker come across, the fact that, you've shared the fact that I've written my book. I'm hoping, when people post this, that you'll give the book a shot. And I didn't write the book to make money. I wrote the book and authentically and transparently shared a lot of hard moments in my life to let people know they're not alone. And all people that get to the big leagues aren't superheroes. And I've had to do some hard. I've learned some hard, but I am now in a spot where I hope that I can share. And that's why I'm on X. That's why I'm on Facebook. That's why I'm on LinkedIn. That's why I'm on Instagram. You've read the stuff. I'm not throwing dirt. I'm not throwing shade. I'm not arguing. I'm just sharing experience, strength, and hope and positivity out there with anybody that's looking for something. That's it.
It's interesting to see you on social media, because you think, older guys who don't know how to use it. I think older guys seem to know that you can use it for good, versus some of the younger generation, myself included. We draw attention to ourselves. We do stupid things, whatever it might be. We criticize others. You're using it to help others, bring light to what you went through and how you can guide others because of that. So I think that's awesome, Clint.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, I'm glad we did this together. I enjoyed our time together.
Likewise. Thanks for coming on, man.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Hey, where can people find the book? Where? Amazon, presumably?
The quickest way is Amazon.com right now. I mean, it'll be there.
That's how I know you're old. Amazon.com. You don't have to say .com anymore, man. At least you didn't do www.amazon.com.
And you're right, because I am old. This is my 50th year in pro ball, Will, and I never saw that one coming either. So I've earned the right to say Amazon.com.
You're the man. Clint, thanks, dude.
You're welcome.
Man, that was fun. That was